Today we're going to talk about a 5-star destruction character who is short, don't like wearing shoes, and uses counterattacks. Hi, this is Gladius, and welcome to my complete Yunli guide. She's a bruiser type character. Getting hit and hitting back even harder is what she's designed to do. Yunli has a special twist when it comes to counterattacking with a unique reactive playstyle. And in this guide, I'll explain what she's all about, how to play and build her. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Yunli's whole kit is built around counterattacking. Her basic attack is very basic and there's not much to it. Yunli's skill is quite relevant to the counterattack playstyle, not because of the damage, but the skill actually heals her for 30% of her attack plus 200. Yunli is going to be tanking a big portion of the team's damage, so having a healing ability built into the kit is something nice to have. When getting hit, Yunli's talent allows her to perform a normal counterattack, dealing damage to the attacker and their adjacents. This counterattack is not that strong, but it does give her 10 energy. But that's not all. The talent gives another 15 energy whenever getting hit. For instance, getting hit by AoE attacks now generate 20 instead of 5, getting hit by single target now generate 25 instead of 10. And remember, triggering any counterattack gives 10 more on top of that. The talent is the core of Yunli's kit and generates so much energy for a very strong ultimate. Upon activating Yunli's ultimate, she gains a parry buff which taunts all enemies until the next turn of an ally or enemy. Her next counterattack triggered by the talent gets massively enhanced to be either a slash counter or call counter, depending on if she was attacked during this small window. In both cases, the crit damage of this counterattack is buffed 100%. The slash counter deals 220% attack to the main target and half of that to adjacent. Call counter is everything that is, but in addition it deals another 6 instances of damage to random targets for a total of 432 attack. Call counter is more than twice the firepower of slash counter, and since it's one or the other always, we as the player is responsible to activate the stronger call counter. We must fully utilize the taunt provided by the momentary buff from the ultimate to activate it right before enemies attack. Holding on to Yunli's ultimate is common practice. Being trigger happy whenever it lights up is just not the way to go. Paying close attention to the action bar and playing reactively is the core of her gameplay. This is as engaging as a turn-based game can get. Yunli's unique energy system completely supports this playstyle. She has a maximum energy of 240, but her ult only requires 120 to activate. It is very flexible to store up extra energy and using it whenever you want. With her talent giving so much energy, Yunli is looking at a one-turn ult rotation. The ultimate ends up being 3/4 of her overall damage. Yunli's Ascension Traces goes even further, enhancing her counterattacks. The first one is a soft pity system for the ult counter. If you miss the timing to trigger the call counter, the next weaker slash counter automatically becomes the stronger call counter. It's like getting a guarantee after losing a 50-50. Second Ascension Trace grants Yunli the ability to resist all crowd controls and reduce damage taken by 20% whenever she had the ult buff. She is still quite vulnerable to crowd controls outside of this momentary buff, but with her ult being usable almost every turn, you can anticipate enemy crowd controls and dodge them accordingly. Last Ascension Trace buffs Yunli's attack by 30% for one turn whenever she counterattacks. This just ends up being a 30% attack buff permanently. Yunli's technique is nothing fancy. When she enters battle with her technique active, she immediately procs a stronger call counter on a random enemy. My recommendation for leveling her trace is ult first, and then level her skill mainly for the extra healing, and lastly level the talent for a minor damage improvement. She always gets 15 more energy from getting hit no matter what level the talent is. Before we start building Yunli, let's understand her damage composition and energy income. Yunli's damage profile is the most ult heavy amongst all damage dealers. 90% of her damage comes from counterattacking, which is also considered to be FUAs. And 75% of her damage is considered to be both ultimate and FUA damage, so we'll be looking for ultimate or follow-up attack damage increases. Yunli is able to sustain a one-turn ult rotation with the highest energy income in the game, but keep in mind, when she takes her own turn and uses her own skill, it only makes up for a quarter of that energy income, which means speed and action advances is mostly going to be about her self-healing and less so about energy income and damage output. Stacking energy regen and extra taunt stats are more effective. When building main stats, for chest piece, crit rate is better than crit damage because Yunli always gets that 100% crit damage from her ult, and potentially even more from the teammates. You'll actually be aiming for a 100% crit rate if possible. For boots, attack percent will be the best stat considering her damage output, Speed does increase her self-healing frequency, but that's about it. For the ball, physical damage is the best, attack percent is too abundant at this point, suffering diminishing returns. For rope, the best stat is going to be the ERR rope. This is the first time I can recommend ERR stat on a DPS character, with her ult being responsible for that much of her damage. Now for substats, it tells a similar story. Speed stat underperforms in the damage compartment, crit rate outweighs everything else, with both crit damage and attack percent being good substats. Keep in mind for Yunli, HP and defense is actually relevant because she'll be taking the majority of your team's incoming damage. Effect resistance is not as important if you adapt to enemies and avoid crowd controls with your ult. Now for the relic bonus, what are we looking for? Wind Soaring Valor is the best in slot, completely tailor-made for her. Sorry Jade, it was never meant for you. Reading the description for this relic set feels like reading the complete description of how Yunli works. Another option is the Grand Duke. It's a very good follow-up attack set in general, and for Yunli is no exception. She has multi-hit and multi-targeting on the call counter version, so the set effect will be maxed out constantly. Due to how good the top two choices are, it's not recommended to go for anything else. For planar ornaments, there are just two options, but one is not necessarily better than the other. Doran Dynasty has better theoretical output, but is relatively new. Salsado, on the other hand, is only slightly behind, but it has the much desired crit rate stat, and is more reliable. Do take note, for Salsado users out there, you can't double dip on the damage bonus, even though Yunli's ultimate is considered both ult and follow-up attack damage. Are you surprised to hear Fall of an Aeon is Yunli's best free-to-play Lycon? I wish I was joking, but it feels like every Destruction character wants this overtuned Lycon. For Destruction Lycon to compete with Aeon, they really have to bring something special, other than being a stat stick. Yunli's signature, Dance at Sunset, does exactly that. It's only 10% ahead in terms of damage output, but it sneakily gives a 500% taunt multiplier to Yunli. This greatly increased FUA frequency outside of her ultimate. More FUAs equals more energy regen. If Yunli goes into pure fiction with this icon, she'll be casting 2 ults in one turn. Other than Fall of an Aeon and her signature Lycon, other 5-star Lycons such as Clara's signature and Blade's signature are okay to put on Yunli as well, but that's about it. It's hard to recommend 4-star Lycons, despite the fact that S5, Secret Vow, and Under Blue Sky both do decent damage. But damage is not the only thing we have to consider. Yunli is a hybrid of a tank and a DPS. You lose too much HP and defense using 4-star Lycons. The Lycon priority will be Yunli's signature, then Fall of an Aeon at S5, then Blade's signature, then Clara's signature. Lastly, Under the Blue Sky and Secret Vow are the go-to and the best 4-stars. Yunli is already really strong at E0 without her signature Lycon, but what if you wanted to invest more? Her E1 is really good, increasing her damage output by a lot, improving slash counter and call counter. But not enough for me to prioritize it over the signature Lycon, considering the fact that limited Lycons are 25% less pulse on average than another copy of a character, and you only have one Fallen Aeon on your account, every other Destruction character is fighting over it. I would say pulling for the signature Lycon gets you more value. Yunli starts off really strong with that E1 but slows down a lot and doesn't have the most impressive Eidolons overall. Like I said, Yunli is fully functional at E0. If you truly wanted to invest more, I would recommend getting her signature Lycon, and to go even further, get her E1 if you wanted to. Due to Yunli's stat distributions having really high damage multipliers, her best teammates are without a doubt Harmony characters. I would recommend you bringing at least one Harmony in any case. To go even further, you can bring more, or even Nihility supports in a team that is hypercarry focused. That being said, dual DPS is viable if you have Robin. Let's go over the best support options. Now, Harmony characters being the best, Robin is the best out of the best. She provides so much for the follow-up attack teams. With high frequency of FUAs from Yunli, Robin's energy is fixed. Sparkle is next in line, offering so many buffs that suit a more hypercarry playstyle, improving Yunli's self-healing with action advances. Tingyun being the next hypercarry support, providing attack percent and energy so Yunli can spam more ultimates. One Harmony character that you need to be cautious of is Rummei. Even though she amplifies the whole team's damage by a good amount, but her ability to delay enemy is not synergistic. Yunli actually wants to be attacked more. For nihility supports, both Silverwolf and Pella can be used. Yunli does benefit from debuffs and defense shred, but it's just not optimal since Harmony characters are overpowered, they just do more in amplification. Now let's talk about a dual DPS team setup. If you do have Robin, you have the flexibility to run double DPS team comp with Robin buffing the whole team. If that's the case, Jade and Jiaoqiu will be the top choices for AoE heavy fights like Pure Fiction. Topaz and Hunt March 7 are more preferred for tankier single target scenarios like Apocalyptic Shadow. One character you want to avoid in the dual DPS setup is Clara. She may seem like a fun teammate for a counterattack duel, but inevitably their taunt will overlap. The last spot will be for a sustain character. With Yunli's taunt and self-heals, you can actually solo sustain easier content, but when it comes to harder endgame content, you'll definitely still want a real sustain. In those scenarios, Huohuo will be your top choice, with heavy energy boost and attack percent buff. Fuxuan will be the second best option who gives out a team-wide 12% crit, making Yunli easier to build. Aventurine is really good if you have Robin on the team because the synergy between the two is unmatched. Every other sustain character will be more or less the same, will be secondary options if you don't have the aforementioned. But do note, you want to avoid all characters that have the ability to taunt enemies. That job is for Yunli. Overall, I won't recommend a fixed team for Yunli other than Harmony characters being overpowered as always, taking up one or more team slots. So other than that, she is not as restrictive as our recent damage dealers. You have quite a bit of flexibility. Yunli is a true hybrid of a tank and a damage dealer. Optimizing her stats and build is just half the equation. You still have to manually activate her ult to adapt to enemy attack patterns and crowd controls. This is as PvP as it gets in a PvE game. If you really love this type of engaging gameplay, or you really like characters that don't wear shoes, I think Yunli is a good pull for you. This is Gladius. Consider liking, subscribing, and ask me if you have any questions in the comment section. Good luck with your polls. Until next time.